Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. Thanks everybody for joining this morning. My name's Nick Hamm. I'm the CEO of 10K Advisors, and today we're going to be talking about the difference Pardot and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So 10K, what is 10K? We are an on-demand consultancy made up of a network of independent consultants and small consulting companies, and we apply their skills to Salesforce customers who need that help on demand. We have lots of great experts like the one that I'm going to introduce you to today. We have Ines Garcia joining us today, who's going to walk us through her thoughts on Pardot and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And she's going to be joined by Jared Miller, who is going to help guide the conversation. So I'll hand it over to Jared to let them do their intros.
Thanks, Nick. My name is Jared Miller. I have been working with Salesforce since 2006. I started off as an accidental admin and then built a career around being part of Salesforce. I have been in the professional services world since 2009 and have played various roles on almost every project that you can imagine, from BA to solutions architect. Worked with a lot of great people, and that has led me to become the COO at 10K, where I'm responsible for our expert community, delivery, and all our operations. It's also great because I get to work with and stay in contact with a lot of our great experts like Ines, who you may have seen featured on our blog during our Independence Week last year. Ines, I'll turn it over to you for a quick intro.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Ines Garcia. I'm an agile coach and a Salesforce MVP. So together, these two things, what I actually do is help companies to become more agile whilst delivering Salesforce. I personally really like to get tangled and close to the tech. I have 9 active certifications, plus 2 that are not active anymore. And then I've been involved with all sorts of deliveries from Sales Service Cloud, Community Cloud, Pardot, applications, Social Studio, Marketing Cloud, you name it. And I've been doing these things since 2013. Similarly, a little bit like Jared, I got into the Salesforce world a bit by accident from a business transformation and discovered this Salesforce thing, which we didn't know what it was. And it really blew my mind that I could do magic buttons that, it really rocked the world from the users so that people can actually invest their time and effort in being unique. So that is me.
Awesome. Thanks, Ines. Well, let's get right into it. Let me ask, why do you think Salesforce has become such a powerful tool for marketers?
Salesforce is just much more than a CRM. It may have started that way. In its core, is to have all your clients and consumers, all the touch points in one place. And as a marketer, just that is super powerful. And then obviously Salesforce has a family of products that enables and supports, the idea of transparency and openness and collaboration within our organization. So that's, it's a mission worth to fight for, and all that data is super valuable for your marketing and for your brand efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having all those touch points is helpful. And I think just to add some clarity, that's all the marketing activities, emails, as well as how they came into your system through leads to opportunities you may have with them as well. Cool. When somebody's got Sales Cloud, somebody has Service Cloud, they're looking to potentially make an investment in Marketing Cloud or Pardot. What's that path look like? How should people start with that?
So yeah, as you said, it may not only start with Sales Cloud. What I see very often is that you may actually use Salesforce for your support in live services for your customers. And with the core capabilities, you kind of cover, maybe you can do some of the outbound efforts, but in itself, core Salesforce is not like a digital marketing tool. So it will get you that far. You can do some things. And typically, in my experience, is the next step from supporting your customers in life is to move into nurturing and acquisition and onboarding and things like that. And that's where really Pardot and Marketing Cloud fits really nicely with the rest.
Great. Now, because I've been around Salesforce for so long, as everything was combined, I'm not sure I'm 100% familiar with the difference between Marketing Cloud and Pardot. Can you go into what the difference is and how do people know what's right for them?
Sure. So Pardot is a marketing automation to help marketing teams and sales team to nurture the best leads and to close more deals, obviously, and to maximize the email marketing efforts. Pardot was acquired around 2012, I believe, and then Marketing Cloud got acquired, comes from an acquisition also in 2013 mid-year. It used to be called Exact Target. I actually used to use Exact Target before it was acquired, so when it was something. So both of these things have the ability to sync the data with your core CRM, Salesforce in this case. They have various segmentation capabilities. You can send one-off emails and some list emails. You have the ability to create web pages, either landing or cloud pages, depends on which tool you're using. You have API services as well, so it helps you to integrate and do call-outs. And also you have, in both of them, the concept of creating of journeys, so that you can do that nurturing of your subscribers list in a kind of a scheduled path. So it runs in the background once it's set up. Like, for example, education piece for onboarding your customers. So every time you have a new customer, you take them through a series of steps and paths independent of their behavior. So that's what both do. And a little bit of the differences, I guess, is that in Pardot, for example, you have the ability to do outbound social publishing efforts. And yes, in Marketing Cloud, you have Social Studio, which is clustered as within Marketing Cloud Suite, but in itself, Social Studio is its own application. And maybe we do another webinar about that. And Pardot is very embedded in Salesforce core. So it's becoming more like one with Salesforce, with the Lightning app and the connected campaigns. So a lot of effort of really close integration from the UI and all the data there. In Pardot, you have a scoring and grading out of the box. So it's not only about how interested are your visitors or your potential customers are about you, but how interested you are on them. So it really helps you with the scoring and grading to prioritize your efforts there. With Pardot also, you have tracking codes so that you can tag, let's say, all your different campaigns and efforts. So you really understand your return of investments from your marketing efforts across different channels. Now, with Marketing Cloud, of course, you have unique things also. And things like it comes with out of the box with a secure FTP and with the ability to run some activities like schedule the files, move between the FTP or other FTPs to move data and files across different places. And recently added in Marketing Cloud, you have what's considered Advertising Studio as part of the Marketing Cloud suite. So that's a lot of information, and I'm sure there is lots more out there of very specific items. But in my mind, if someone is not sure when to use one or when to decide for the other, I know that there is a commercial proposition out there from Salesforce, but I'm going to give you my opinionated decision model, right? Which is if you're not going to look at push notifications and you are not going to look at SMS for your commercial activities, then Pardot is your answer. Otherwise, Marketing Cloud would be the one to choose.
That's a great breakdown in terms of when you should be looking at one versus the other. Let's say the company has decided and they're implementing Marketing Cloud or in a different case, Pardot. Where should they start?
I think with any new tech, the place to start is about the objective. what are you even considering to use this new thing? So understanding the metrics of success, so out of your marketing efforts that you are selecting this new tool for, what do you want to see? And it's very different, the metrics that you will be looking at, brand awareness in comparison to conversion, for example. And that's the things that you're going to report on, and that's how you should be building from, understanding the end goal. Now, for that, you can use the concepts, for example, of customer journeys, or maybe story mapping, which is worth to look at, right? It will help you to break down those steps and the efforts that you're going to put, and how is best to support whichever of your efforts, right? So think about different types of engagements and channels there. That's really where you should be starting, and then break down how that can translate.
Got it. People have started these projects. They maybe have gone through a Pardot implementation. What are a couple things that these organizations can do to get more out of their investment that they already have?
So I'll give you a few, I think, that I don't see very oftenly used. One would be those automation journeys I was talking about. So simple things like setting up an onboarding process, like an education piece, right? You have a new customer, so you will take them through a series of steps. So there is a time path where they can digest that information and get the most out of your services and your products. So that's a good one. Or maybe have a piece for renewals, so you are on top of mind before the time of contract renewal comes about. Once those things are set up, it doesn't need much of an effort, right? You may want to update some of the assets that you have over there, but once it's set up, it kind of self-run, which is really good. Another one would be test. And that I'm not only talking about the specific functionality about testing, but the concept about having a small experiment. So you can assess if it's worth a bigger initiative or investment. So start with a hypothesis, break down that into a few predictions, and then throw some experiments so you can validate if that prediction supports the hypothesis, kind of thing. Another thing is exclusion lists. For example, you may want to have some kind of like dynamic exclusion to make sure that you are not emailing again or reaching out again to people that you already emailed the last 7 days. Because we all know that nowadays it's very easy to get too much information. So it's important that we look after our customers as well in terms of the touch points that we surface. And the last one, I guess, would be about warming your IP. And that's very important. And again, I don't see it often. So instead of doing big blast of mail outs, for your domain reputation, for your email client domain, to make sure that those things are not blocked, you need to prepare the volume before time. So instead of sending 10,000 emails one day, break them down over time, and then start maybe with 1,000, next day 2,000, or something like that. So warming up your IP is very important.
And you touched on a couple of things that lead me to my next question. You mentioned having a hypothesis and testing some outcomes. A lot of that sounds like it's outside the actual implementation or technology. So what kind of time and resource commitment should internal teams expect to have to manage a Pardot or Marketing Cloud effectively?
So it probably will depend on the strategy and objective that you are setting up. So it will be very varied, right? So from maybe having somebody allocated part-time to look after this solution, or being full-time, or being part of a team. I think what is important is to make sure that whoever is there have some kind of training, and that can be tool specific so that they can get the most out of it, but also having an understanding about digital marketing practices. That is really what makes the difference.
Got it. With the projects that you've been on, and also doing some work with us internally, what is the biggest mistake that you see people making?
So I think often, and I hope everybody will recognize this to a certain degree, is that we try to do too much at once. And that's not only obviously for marketing specific. Maybe one day I will write the value of, I'll write a book or something about the value of focusing in prioritization and sizing the efforts. As I was saying before, like how you can validate your hypothesis, because we all have so many ideas and that is really great. But how you can run experiments to prove you right or wrong. So you can either persevere or pivot, and either way is fine.
Yeah, so it's not just the anecdotal evidence. Now we have the tools and the capabilities to track and actually validate with data what is going on. Nice. So right now we're kind of in a very crazy time in the world. There are a lot, almost everybody's working from home, maybe collaborating with teams that they used to be talking to face to face. Now they're having video calls or chats or using other technologies. Going back to your role as an agile coach and someone who has worked from home, what kind of advice would you give to people who are now in that situation?
So yeah, definitely strange times, but I mostly work with distributed teams. That was before this new normal. And being distributed doesn't necessarily mean being dispersed. So here, I'll probably point you to the Agile Manifesto. And one of the principles is that, yes, face-to-face goes a long way. But we have the means and the technology to support that, even that we are physically far away from each other. So it's important to have agreements as a team in terms of like the channels and which channel for what. Also for best times and time zones understanding for everybody. And also when you're going to have a slack time, like not the time to focus, to have the ability to get into a flow, because similarly to what I was saying earlier, we need to be mindful about the amount of information that is displayed to us. So yeah, having that time of focus and flow is very important. Ultimately, you are a team, so you are there together with a common goal. So that's what drives you. And in brief, to me, the best advice is to be kind to yourself and fair, also kind and fair to others.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think especially with people now working from home and having spouses and children and pets around all the time, being able to be reasonable with distractions and understand where everybody's coming from is very important to a successful work environment. Awesome. All right, before we open this up to a Q&A, I know that you have a card game that you have invented. And if you could just tell us a little bit about your company and how you decided to maybe go independent and start your own company.
Okay, then, so I'll start with the company. So the name of my company kind of sets it all, is Get Agile. So, you know, it's about helping organizations to be more agile whilst we deliver Salesforce. And how this came about is because I looked around the ecosystem and I was a little bit disappointed about the mass confusion and misuse of the agile concepts. The fact that release dates were missed or delayed, or products not being adopted in the market after you put that time and effort there. You know, frustrated teams, obviously, because you put your mind and soul into something. And I just felt like there was enough, and it was time for having a wider impact about bringing awareness of how Agile can actually really help the Salesforce community, and trying to demystify a bit what is all this hype about. for example, in 2006, Salesforce themselves, they make the move from a more traditional way of looking at projects with their engineering team into being more agile. And with that move, the productivity went up 38%, and they were able to wrap up the major releases like 60% faster.
Wow.
Those are big numbers. So this is my company. And then you talked about a game. I'm always busy with ideas and things like that. Again, it's important to experiment. And I really love board games and card games. So my game is called Birds, Nerds, and Turds. You can find this online if you go theagileretrospectivegame.com. And basically it's a merge of what I do, what I'm passionate about, and games together. So it's for teams to self-assess, to reflect, and hopefully in a fun style, I tried, adapt and tweak things so that they can become more effective once they have a laugh.
Awesome. And lastly, any advice for people who are looking to start their own business?
Yes, I think definitely the money shouldn't be the driver there. In today's market, demand isn't much of a different, at least here in the UK, where, if you're set up as a limited company, there is not much of a difference, especially in this booming ecosystem. And I want to be honest, working for yourself brings another layer of activities for one to do, like raising invoices and having your accounts up to date, and expenses and insurance, and think about your pension and your medical cover and your lead gen and all these sort of things. So it's not all wonders, but it does have its perks. So if there is a deep reason for you to want to go self-employed, go and create your own company, the Salesforce market has a very high demand for talent. So go for it. And being an independent consultant gives me the flexibility to be able to support the community in ways that I don't think I would have been able to otherwise. And, in a sense, to choose the customers that I work with and how those engagements works.
And how long have you had your own company?
Well, since all my UK life, to be honest.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks, Ines. Thanks for taking the time for me to ask some questions that I've been dying to ask.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, thanks very much. And I think we'll open it up to Q&A to the attendees. If they want to type in some questions, we'll do our best to take the next few minutes to relay those to Ines. And I'll say, since I'm already here, I have a question that came up. Do you see any customers that are using both Pardot and Marketing Cloud? And can you maybe talk about some of those situations you've run into, if you've seen that, and maybe how they're using them differently, or should they be using both, and just what your feedback might be there?
Yeah, I encountered that recently only one time, honestly, and it has served as a segregation between commercial activities and transactional. So in this particular scenario, anything that is to engage with new partnerships, for example, it will go through Pardot. It's easier to track your visitors and the kind of behavior that you have within your websites in there, and also that grading of how much you care to try to reach and close those deals. Whilst Marketing Cloud will be reserved for very high volume of transactional communications. So when individual client rather than an organization partnership would require an order email, or things, refunds, updates, and things like that. So much more transactional, sort of high volume piece.
Makes sense. Appreciate that. We did have one question from the audience about Einstein, and have you had a chance to use those new features? Do you have any initial thoughts about it? How could companies make use of this new functionality?
I would imagine this is within Marketing Cloud, and honestly, I haven't played yet about the only Einstein sort of functionality that I have been involved with analytics. and with Einstein bots, which is chatbots kind of ruling system for your live chat.
Cool. We have one other question about, you talked about A/B testing and hypotheses in digital marketing. Could you maybe give an example of what somebody might do to do that?
Yeah, so not even A/B testing, but I think sometimes what we miss is, you know, I'm talking about very scientific words, hypotheses and experiments and stuff, and I kind of do that very consciously. I think we need to take a lot of learning from science about resilience and trying new things. And one of the things I don't see often is control groups. So sometimes you see a lot of correlation about, okay, my sales have gone up. We clearly done a campaign. These two things might have gone together, but how about if we had a control group that didn't get anything around the campaign? So we can see actually a knock-on effect. So yeah, that's kind of where I was going with all this philosophical hypothesis thing. And I think it's important sometimes to give us a bit of headspace and look at those other options. How can we really validate our efforts today so that we are smarter tomorrow?
Hopefully that answered the question for the attendee. If not, feel free to type in more. One of the other things you mentioned, and I know this was a personal learning that you helped us with for our own Pardot implementation, which we use here at 10K, is you talked about not sending these big blasts at one time. Can you maybe drill into that a little bit more deeply about why you don't want to do that and kind of what the reasoning behind that is?
So the typical email clients such as Google, Gmail, and things like that, they going to block your emails coming in when you do blast out. Basically, you're warming your IP. What it really helps is in your deliverability. So instead of, you have the ability to segment all your database when you're doing these efforts, right? So do it in a way that is gonna slowly build over time. You have graphs in both in Pardot and Marketing Cloud, the ability to report and see, you know, what's the volume that you're doing over time. Just try to be a bit smart about that so it doesn't get blocked. You know, you put so much time and effort, make sure that the design looks good, the wording is right, and all of that. You don't want that to be blocked.
That makes sense. We have one more question asking about the benefits of Marketing Cloud versus Pardot specifically for small businesses.
I will go back to the point of, if you're not looking at using SMS for commercial activities or push notifications, so you may already have something else that does that, such as, you know, there are other product family from Salesforce that does these things like live messages. I don't know the current name for that, but there is other tools that may support that. If that's any of the channels that you actually want, then your answer is Pardot. I think you may have grasped this. I quite like it. It's really neat UI. It's really embedded with Salesforce. I think the team has done a very, very good job to integrate this as part of the core. And honestly, Marketing Cloud will have a steeper learning curve. They are trying to make it better as a product, but it's kind of its own application at the minute, and it will take more time to learn.
So I think there's a right or wrong perception out there that Pardot's for small companies, Marketing Cloud's for big companies, but that's not necessarily the case. It's more about the functionality that you're looking for, and it sounds like one of the big differentiators to Marketing Cloud specifically are the push and SMS notifications that you can do.
Yeah, in my opinion, and if I may as well, I extend with something. I think it maybe was to know when I was talking about, you know, who should be looking after this new tool, whichever of the two that you may have. And if you have the expertise in-house and the headspace internally, then do go for it. You know, this is cool and interesting tech, which is always evolving. So if you have the opportunity, please get involved. If you don't have, then at least get some guidance, get somebody to help you, not only with the training, because specifically Marketing Cloud has its own intricacies. So you want to get the most out of that investment. So get somebody to help you with that journey, and avoid, well, in the worst case scenario, avoid damaging your brand. So, but yeah, go for it. Again, it's very interesting. Tech is really evolving real fast. So if you can, get involved.
And I like the point that you made earlier around, it's not just the technology that you need to know, but having some digital marketing experience and communications experience is very, very important. And again, I can speak to our own personal experience here at 10K. We certainly know the Salesforce platform, I think, pretty well. That didn't really know Pardot that well. I would say that we're not necessarily digital marketing experts either, but it's really easy to get yourself in trouble fast because you can very easily just go create some messages and send them out to a bunch of people, right? So I think don't underestimate that digital marketing experience, and having some guidance there is a very good piece of advice. So I don't think we have any other questions at the moment. I'll thank you, Ines, very much for joining us. It's very, very informative. Thank you, Jared, for leading the conversation. Thank you to everyone who joined today for spending some time with us. Hopefully it was useful for you. We'll have this video recorded and up in our blog in a couple days if you want to review it again, and interact with us on social. If you have any other questions or follow-ups, and please follow Ines as well. So thank you very much, Ines. Appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ines.